Right now, on Currents News, the suspect is identified in the deadly mass shooting in Colorado. Now police are searching for a motive. Plus, Governor Andrew Cuomo still has no plans to resign despite growing scandals.
I'm Emily Drewby, and I came up to Albany to find out why New Yorkers are okay with him staying in office.
New video and pictures show the dire situation along the southern border. And a milestone in the COVID-19 pandemic when New York City wants to have employees back to working in person. A procession of emergency vehicles, including an ambulance carrying the body of Boulder police officer Eric Talley. He's one of the 10 people killed in a mass shooting at a supermarket, gunned down while responding to the call for help. His family says he leaves behind 7 children, the youngest just 7 years old. The Archbishop of Denver says Talley was a Catholic and a man of strong faith, regularly going to a church that was located right across the street from the supermarket. Good evening. I'm Christine Persichetti. The Archdiocese of Denver is praying for him and the other 9 victims. Authorities are giving more details on the attack, including the name of the shooter, who is in custody, but still do not have a motive. President Biden, addressing the violence, called for lawmakers to ban assault rifles and high-capacity magazines.
10 lives have been lost, and more families have been shattered by gun violence in the state of Colorado. And Jill and I are devastated.
10 victims ranging in age from 20 to 65. Their lives cut short Monday when a man opened fire in a Boulder, Colorado supermarket.
It's a simple run for milk and eggs, getting ready to shop, going in a regular way we all live our lives, something that we can all identify with, led to a complete tragedy here today.
One of those victims, police officer Eric Talley, who was the first officer to respond to the incident.
We can never thank Officer Talley or his family enough for their sacrifice, but we will not forget it.
21-year-old Ahmad Al-Aliwi Alyssa is charged with 10 counts of murder. He was taken to the hospital with a gunshot wound to the leg. Police say he was born in Syria but has lived in the United States most of his life and is currently a resident of nearby Arvada, Colorado. They also say he was known to the FBI. He will be taken to jail after being released from the hospital.
We will hold the evildoer responsible to the full extent of the law for his actions.
There is no motive yet for the shooting. Vice President Kamala Harris is calling the shooting tragic. The Archbishop of Denver says he is praying for all those impacted by the shooting, releasing this statement saying, quote, "While we still do not know what led up to this terrible event, incidents like this have become far too common in our country and our state. We must work to promote deeper conversion of hearts so that our lives are characterized by the virtue of charity, which allows us to love God and our neighbor, strengthening the fabric of society and preventing senseless acts of violence such as this one." Colorado has been the scene of multiple fatal shootings in recent years, many of which made national headlines. In May of 2019, 2 students opened fire in a charter school, killing 1 student and wounding 8 others. In October of 2015, police shot a man who killed 3 people on a residential street near downtown Colorado Springs. In July of 2012, a man killed 12 and wounded 58 during a midnight screening at an Aurora movie theater. And in April of 1999, 2 students walked into Columbine High School, fatally shooting a teacher and 12 students before killing themselves. Catholics are voicing their opposition to the Equality Act. The bill, which still needs the Senate's approval to pass, prohibits discrimination based on sexuality or gender. But during a webinar on Monday, people of faith say that law would discriminate against them.
Catholic organizations serve all beneficiaries and do not deny or discriminate against any for identifying as LGBT. The Equality Act, however, would mandate how we serve others in ways that force us to either violate our faith or shut down.
The webinar was hosted by the Archdioceses of New York and Los Angeles, the Dioceses of Arlington and Green Bay, and the Catholic Conferences of Colorado and Virginia. President Joe Biden is putting together a sweeping $3 trillion package focusing on infrastructure and economic needs. The proposal would be segmented into two parts. One centered on the climate change initiatives the president outlined during his 2020 campaign. The second would provide free community college, universal pre-K, and paid family leave to workers. No part of the proposal has been finalized, and White House advisors are expected to show off the plans as soon as this week. Customs and Border Protection releases a new video showing life inside two of its holding facilities. It comes after Democratic Representative Henry Cuellar released photos of one of the same facilities showing overcrowding and children sleeping on Mylar blankets. The Border Patrol video also shows the sleeping facility with Mylar blankets, but goes on to show kids playing outside, exercising, and undergoing health screenings. Critics have been calling for more transparency at the facilities. The jury has been selected in the case of the former police officer accused of killing George Floyd. Derek Chauvin is charged with murder and manslaughter. Video shows him leaning on Floyd's neck for 9 minutes. The city of Minneapolis has announced a $27 million settlement to Floyd's family for his death. It took 11 days of extensive questioning by the judge and lawyers for both sides to select the 15 jurors. Opening statements are set for March 29th. Back in New York, the governor's fight to stay in office continues. He's resisting calls from many top Democrats to resign after multiple women have come forward with allegations of sexual harassment. The governor says he's not going anywhere, and that's because he has the support of the people. Emily Druby is in Albany with the story.
Lawmakers believe the impeachment investigation into Governor Cuomo could take months. This after an 8th woman accused him of sexual harassment. Now, he's lost support of top politicians like Senators Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand, but polls show so far he has managed to hold on to the support of the public.
The majority of voters in New York say, we don't want you to run for re-election, Governor Cuomo, but there's no need at the moment for you to resign.
Steve Greenberg is a pollster for Siena College, which is Catholic. In their March numbers, 35% said he should resign, while 50% said he should not. However, 52% said they wouldn't vote for him in 2022. In a recent Quinnipiac poll, the numbers were a bit closer. 36% think he should be impeached, while 43% want him to resign. Still, 49% said they want him to stay in office. But Steve says these numbers could change as more information comes to light about the allegations and investigations surrounding them daily.
The poll is nothing more than a snapshot in time, and events have changed, and what people know has changed, and therefore their opinion may change.
Earlier this month, Cuomo signaled he was relying heavily on the public's support, saying he wouldn't resign because he was elected by the people, not by politicians. Meanwhile, a lawyer for one of his accusers is claiming the governor is trying to interfere with the AG's harassment probe, complaining lawyers from his office have been meeting with staff before their interviews, which could stop them from coming forward with information. In Albany, New York, Emily Druby, Currents News.
In New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio says municipal employees will return to in-person work beginning May 3rd.
We're going to make it safe, but we need our city workers back in their offices where they can do the most to help their fellow New Yorkers. And it's also going to send a powerful message about this city moving forward.
The move will affect roughly 80,000 employees who've been working remotely since the pandemic began. The rest of the city's 300,000 person workforce, many of them frontline workers, never had the option to work remotely. Looking at the numbers over the last month, the city's positivity rate of more than 6% has actually been stagnant, plateauing at around that number for some weeks now. But the new worry growing in the city is new variants of COVID-19. Coming up, Emily Druby spoke with Dr. Tabali and has the best ways to protect yourself. U.S. health officials raising questions about data AstraZeneca released on its COVID vaccine. They say the company may have cherry-picked efficacy results during testing.
The data that was in the press release were somewhat outdated and might in fact be misleading a bit. This is really what you call an unforced error, because the fact is this is very likely a very good vaccine.
AstraZeneca's vaccine isn't yet authorized for use in the United States, but experts worry this may create fear in Americans over getting any shot. They say the public can rest assured any vaccine cleared by the FDA is safe. As more and more New Yorkers get vaccinated, the attention is now being focused on the city's growing homeless population. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has more from Staten Island on the effort.
Eating, sleeping, and cooking outside in the bitter cold. On days when the wind is whipping, the homeless population takes on another risk during the pandemic.
Homelessness is on the brink of becoming a pandemic itself.
According to the latest data from the Department of Homeless Services, more than 53,000 people sleep in New York City shelters every day. Nearly 90% of them are Black and Hispanic, communities that have been disproportionately affected by the pandemic.
This is the shed that houses our beds.
Reverend Terry Troya, the president of Project Hospitality, advocates for them and for the street homeless who live in encampments like this one. During the pandemic, Project Hospitality was the only church-based shelter network in the city to stay open.
This last year, we have seen an unprecedented number of homeless people hunker down in encampments, people that were forced out very early in COVID. Some as a result of losing their jobs in COVID.
Homeless people across New York City have been eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine for several weeks. So far, the city has administered more than 7,500 vaccines to social and homeless services clients. The city has been using the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
The most important thing is to get people vaccinated so they don't get so sick. You need that. The one shot, I think, is the solution for people who may not make it back a second time. This is now their home.
Reverend Troya says the recent explosion of homelessness in New York City can be turned around if everyone does their part, especially during the season of Lent.
Almsgiving is giving money or giving your talent or your service to the poor. If our lives revolved around those three pillars every day, not just 40 days, we would be a holier and a more healthy world.
The city has been vaccinating people in the shelters where they live and working with its street medicine program to vaccinate people living outdoors. Project Hospitality will make the Johnson & Johnson vaccine available to its residents in shelters starting next week. On Staten Island, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
New York Cardinal Timothy Dolan sent a much-needed gift to a group of nuns in Cuba. After His Eminence visited the island nation last year, the group of discalced Carmelites reached out to him, asking for help fixing the machine they use to make communion hosts. Taking it to the next step, he sent the sisters a brand new machine. But because of the pandemic, the machine arrived nearly a year after the Cardinal's visit. There's a lot more news headed your way. We speak with Fox News anchor Shannon Bream about her new book on women in the Bible, plus why the Pope is calling out the mafia over their actions during the pandemic, and how COVID-19 vaccines can keep you safe even with new variants emerging. New coronavirus variants continue to be identified, with the highly contagious P1 variant now in Brooklyn. Emily Druby reports as doctors say getting the vaccine is a good way to fight against future variants.
Spring breakers partying in the streets, air travel taking off. Variants already showing up across the country like P1. The highly contagious variant first found in Brazil is now in Brooklyn. Just one of several variants the CDC has labeled concerning, along with B.1.427 and B.1.429 first found in California, B.1.351 first out of South Africa, and B.1.1.7 first spotted in the UK. They've been popping up across the U.S. as the country scrambles to vaccinate as many people as possible.
This is a moving target. The genes will keep on reassorting and mutating, and so the vaccines will have varying degrees of effectiveness against the variants.
About 44 million Americans have been fully vaccinated, 13% of the population. Success when it comes to the vaccine fighting the variant depends.
If you've had a messenger RNA vaccine, Pfizer, Moderna, it's effective against the British variant. But against the South African variant and against the California variant, And against the Brazilian variant, not so much.
Dr. Robert Tabali is an infectious disease expert with the Catholic Medical Association. He says so far it looks like when it comes to the variants, the mRNA vaccines maintain a high degree of effectiveness. The non-mRNA vaccines like Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca have substantial decreases in protection when it comes to the variants. However, he still advocates for the shot.
Not let this news about variants paralyze you about getting a vaccination. It's in your best interests.
Adding it's a good way to fight against future variants.
If we could get everybody vaccinated as soon as possible, we would see the reservoir of circulating infection drop dramatically, and then that would conversely drop the number of variants we'd be seeing emerge in our country.
Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson have all announced they're working on additional modifications for future vaccines to better cover the emerging variants. In the future, booster shots could address these prevalent variants. Emily Drewby, Currents News.
Pope Francis is condemning the mafia for making money off the COVID-19 pandemic.
Le mafie sono presenti in varie parti del mondo e sfruttando la pandemia si stanno arricchendo con la corruzione.
The pontiff also urging Christians to renew their commitment against the mafia and other organized crime. Italian officials say they used economic struggles in Italy to take over many small businesses early in the pandemic. As we continue to celebrate Women's History Month here on Currents News, we'd like to tell you about a new book that highlights the women of the good book. The Women of the Bible Speak takes a closer look into the lives of 16 biblical warriors, women who were central figures in many Bible stories. Joining us now is the author of the book, Shannon Bream, who's also the anchor of Fox News Channel's Fox News at Night. And Shannon, first tell us what inspired you to write this book.
You know, Christine, it came about during the pandemic, and I found that there's so many stories about women that people don't know, whether they're people of faith or not. They're intimidated by the Bible or by religion. These are amazing standalone stories, and they were included in the Bible for a reason. So I became very inspired and encouraged at a time when we all really need it. So I hope that sharing these stories will help people to see that God uses great and small, flawed and faithful. And that in all of that, even when these women got wildly off track with their own plans, God redeemed all of it and he used it. And I think that that should be an encouraging message for all of us, as we all have different faith journeys and all of us sometimes get off track. God can still use that.
Sure. And in the first chapter about Abraham's wife, Sarah, you write, like the men, the women of the Bible are complicated. It says they are on the whole neither fully good nor completely bad people, but simply people in all their messy and uncomfortable humanity. And it's when we can see them in their full humanity that God can teach us something about ourselves. So what can we learn from the women of the Bible?
I love that these stories aren't sanitized, because I think the flaws are important for people to see and to know, okay, I can relate to that. I have lost my temper. I've fought with my siblings. I've made bad decisions. I've gone my own way. So I like that these women are not presented as fully faithful all the time without any fears, any concerns. They are like us. The problems they have are timeless. These women dealt with infertility and widowhood, betrayal, family spats, chronic illnesses, all of that. So I think it's very translatable to what we've been through in 2020 and now into 2021, that the problems these women had and the way they found their faith and God worked through them really apply to all of us today in the same way. God hasn't changed, and neither have any of our problems.
It's true. It's a lot of the struggles that we deal with today. So which woman in the Bible do you relate to the most? Who's your favorite?
You know, I love Deborah in the Old Testament. I love highlighting her story because she was a leader. She literally was the leader of the nation of Israel, and she led them into this battle that nobody thought on paper they could win, but she believed God had told her to go, and she didn't hesitate. So I would hope that I would grow to be more like Deborah all the time, not hesitating when there's a task in front of me or God asks me to step out in a way that feels impossible or uncomfortable. I love her faithfulness and the fact that she is a strong woman, when a lot of people don't know those kinds of women are highlighted and included in the Bible.
Has writing the book strengthened your faith?
I feel like it has, because we all needed that over the last year, a new grounding in permanent things, the things of eternity, because this world is easily shaken. We see so much despair, so much loss. And in reading these words, I felt, you know, I've read some of these verses time and time again, but they feel fresh to me. I feel like God is saying, I haven't changed no matter what happens in the world, no matter what you confront. I am always here. I'm faithful and I'm waiting for you, whether you come to me in trouble or in a time of peace and blessing. I don't change and I'm faithful.
And I love that this book comes during Women's History Month, because when people think of the Bible, they think of men, right?
Mm-hmm. It's true, and these stories are fascinating, and there's a reason they were included. We have faithful women like Hannah, who just went to the Lord with her vulnerability. She poured out her sorrow to him. She was dealing with infertility, and God answered her prayers, not right away, not maybe in the timing she would have wanted, but we see the progression of her faith and how year after year she kept asking. And God was faithful, and he heard her. We're told he heard her prayers. So I think that there are stories like that of just faithful, unknown, quiet women, and others who rose to prominence, like Queen Esther. We have Mary, the mother of Jesus, where even if you're not a person of faith, you know and admire this woman. So they're all included from different walks of life and all being used.
Really fascinating stories. Shannon Bream, author of The Women of the Bible Speak and anchor of Fox News at Night. Thanks for being here and sharing it with us.
Thank you, Christine.
If you'd like to get the book, The Women of the Bible Speak, it's set to be released on March 30th, but you can pre-order your copy now. Head on over to foxnews.com/books. Churches will be open this year for Easter, so the tablet is helping you find a service in your area. The paper has a full list of masses and vigils from a variety of parishes all around Brooklyn and Queens, starting from Palm Sunday and ending with Mass on Easter Sunday. For a look at the full schedule, as well as all Holy Week updates, just go to thetablet.org. If you go to church on Good Friday, you could be helping Christians in the Holy Land. Collections during that service go to a Vatican effort that supports the work of the Franciscans there. They have maintained the holy places of pilgrimage where Jesus Christ walked for the past 800 years. The funds also send support to Christians in the Middle East. If you plan to attend the service virtually or want to donate before Good Friday, just go to myfranciscan.org/Good Friday. This year, the washing of the feet on Holy Thursday is canceled because of COVID-19 regulations. But Monsignor David Casado of St. Athanasius Church says what it symbolizes should continue.
The whole symbolism of the washing of the feet is doing things for the needy. Remember, what you do for the least, you do for Jesus himself.
As the pandemic continues to impact people in the community, the food pantry at St. Athanasius has grown from helping about 20 people to well over 100. Still to come on Currents News, the woman who didn't let virtual Mass stop her from putting on her Sunday best. A dedicated Oklahoma churchgoer has not missed a service since the pandemic started, tuning in every Sunday for virtual church. And despite having to attend church online, Laverne Wimberly hasn't forgotten about her Sunday best, dressing up to the nines every week just to sit in front of her computer.
I wanted not only to keep myself motivated, but I wanted to help keep others motivated as well, to inspire them, encourage them.
And she looks fabulous. Wimberly says she will be the first one in church as soon as health officials give the green light. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.